Welcome, or welcome back to the channel. Tonight's video features 3 true horror stories from the Philippines. Stories whispered in the dark and remembered long after the lights go out. The final story involves the infamous Tik-Tik, a creature known for its cruel deception. When its sound is loud, it is far away. But when the sound grows faint, it means the creature is already close, watching, waiting. Before we begin, if you enjoy true horror stories told alongside the sound of falling rain stories meant to lull you into sleep while keeping one eye open, consider subscribing. We upload 3 to 4 times every week. Now, turn off the lights. Pull your blanket closer. Lie still, breathe slowly, and listen carefully. These are 3 true horror stories. Let's begin. I need to tell someone about what happened to me 3 years ago. I've kept this to myself for so long, but it eats at me every single day. My therapist says talking about it might help, so here goes. This is my story, and I swear on everything I hold dear that every word of it is true. My name is Marcus, and in 2022, I was working as a rideshare driver in Manila. I'd been doing it for about 2 years at that point, mostly night shifts because the pay was better and the traffic was lighter. I'm a night owl anyway, so it worked out perfectly. I'd start around 10 p.m. and drive until 4 or 5 in the morning, then sleep through most of the day. I thought I'd seen it all. Drunk passengers, people getting sick in my car, couples fighting, marriage proposals in my back seat. I'd had passengers try to rob me twice, and once I drove someone to the hospital who was having a heart attack. Nothing really fazed me anymore. Or so I thought. It was a Tuesday night in October, around 2030 in the morning. I remember the exact time because I'd just checked my phone, thinking about calling it a night. I'd had a decent evening, made enough money, and I was tired. But then the app pinged with a new ride request. The pickup location was in Malate, near Remedios Circle. The drop-off was way out in Las Piñas, which meant a good fare. I almost declined because Las Piñas was far from where I wanted to end my shift, but the money was too good to pass up. I accepted. When I arrived at the pickup spot, I found myself in front of an old apartment building. You know the type, built probably in the 70s. Concrete walls stained with age and moisture, windows with rusty grills. There was a single flickering streetlight casting weird shadows across the entrance. The passenger's name on the app was listed as Maria S. I waited for a couple of minutes, and then I saw her. A woman in her 30s, I'd guess, wearing a plain white blouse and dark pants. Office attire, basically. She had long black hair that fell past her shoulders, and she was carrying a small purse. Nothing unusual about her at all. She opened the back door and got in without a word. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror and said, my usual greeting, "Good evening, ma'am. Going to Las Piñas, correct?" She nodded but didn't speak. Again, not that unusual. Plenty of passengers don't want to chat, especially at that hour. Some people are just tired or prefer their privacy. I respected that. I pulled away from the curb and started heading south. The streets were nearly empty, which is one of the things I loved about night driving. No traffic, just smooth sailing down Roxas Boulevard, with the bay on one side and the old buildings on the other. About 10 minutes into the drive, I noticed something odd. The temperature in the car had dropped significantly. I mean, it got cold. I had the AC on because Manila at night can still be humid, but this was different. It was like someone had opened a freezer. I could see my breath fogging up slightly. I adjusted the AC, turning it down to the lowest setting, but the cold didn't go away. If anything, it got worse. I glanced in the rearview mirror at my passenger. She was sitting perfectly still, staring straight ahead. Her hands were folded in her lap, and she hadn't moved at all since getting in. "Ma'am, is the AC okay?" I asked. "I can turn it off if you're cold." No response. She just kept staring forward. I felt a prickle of unease, but told myself she might be wearing earphones under her hair. Or maybe she was just one of those passengers who really didn't want to be bothered. I'd had plenty of those. I turned off the AC completely. The cold remained. We passed through Pasay, the neon signs of late-night businesses blurring by, a 7-Eleven, a closed restaurant, a gas station with a single attendant sitting in a plastic chair looking at his phone. Normal sights. Familiar sights. But something felt wrong. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I checked the mirror again. Maria, if that was even her real name, hadn't moved an inch. Same position, same blank stare. And here's the thing that really got to me. I couldn't see her breathing. I watched for maybe 30 seconds, and her chest didn't rise or fall once. My heart started beating faster. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Obviously, she was breathing. People breathe. Maybe she was just very still, very calm. Maybe she'd had a long day and was spacing out. But the cold... God, the cold was getting unbearable. My hands were starting to go numb on the steering wheel. "Ma'am," I said again, louder this time, "are you all right?" Nothing. We were on the expressway now, the Cavite stretch. There were even fewer vehicles out here, just the occasional truck hauling goods to the provinces. The lights along the highway created pools of yellow illumination every few hundred meters, and between them was darkness. That's when I saw it. In the rearview mirror, passing through one of those pools of light, I saw her face clearly for the first time. Her skin was gray, not just pale, but actually gray, like concrete. And her eyes. Jesus Christ, her eyes. They were completely black. No whites at all, just solid black orbs that didn't reflect any light. I nearly swerved off the road. My whole body went rigid with fear. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. I was tired, that's all. Hallucinating from exhaustion. But when I looked in the mirror again, I saw the same thing. Gray skin, black eyes. And now I noticed something else. Her hair was wet. Not just damp, but soaking wet, and water was dripping onto my back seat. I could hear it. Drip, drip, drip. "Oh God," I whispered. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." I wanted to pull over. I wanted to stop the car right there on the expressway and run. But I was too terrified to do anything except keep driving. My hands locked onto the wheel, my foot stayed on the gas pedal. It was like my body was operating on autopilot while my mind screamed in panic. Then she spoke. Her voice was wrong. It sounded like it was coming from far away, hollow and echoing, like someone talking from the bottom of a well. "Keep driving," she said. I couldn't respond. My throat had closed up. I could barely breathe. "I need to go home," she continued in that awful, distant voice. "Please, I need to go home." Something about the way she said it made me feel a strange mixture of terror and pity. Whatever this thing was in my back seat, it sounded sad, lost. Where? Where? Where do you live? I managed to croak out. The address in the app, she said. Please, I just want to go home. I glanced at my phone. The destination was still showing the Las Piñas address, a specific street, a specific house number. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel straight. We drove in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only 15 minutes. The cold had gotten so intense that frost was forming on the inside of my windows. Frost. In tropical Manila, I had to keep wiping the windshield to see the road. I kept checking the mirror. She remained motionless, but water continued to drip from her hair, pooling on the floor of my back seat. I could smell it now. Not just water, but something else, something organic and rotten, like a stagnant pond. Finally, we exited the expressway and entered the residential streets of Las Piñas. The GPS led me through narrow roads lined with houses, most of them dark at this hour. Dogs barked as we passed. A few security guards stood at their posts, smoking cigarettes. "Turn here," the voice said. I turned onto a small street. The houses here were older, more run-down. Then the GPS announced we'd arrived at our destination. It was a small bungalow set back from the road, behind a low concrete wall. The house was dark, and I could see that the yard was overgrown with weeds. There was a "For Sale" sign planted near the gate, faded and weathered. I stopped the car in front of the house, my engine idling. For a long moment, nothing happened. I stared at the house, too afraid to look in the rearview mirror. Then I heard the door handle click. The back door opened, and the interior light came on. I forced myself to look. The back seat was empty. Not just empty of passengers, there was no water on the floor, no wet spot on the seat. Nothing. It was completely dry, as if no one had been there at all. But the cold remained for a few more seconds, and then, gradually, it began to fade. The temperature in the car slowly returned to normal. The frost on my windows started to disappear. I sat there, unable to move, barely able to think. What had just happened? Had I imagined the entire thing? But no, the ride was logged in my app. Passenger picked up in Malate, dropped off in Las Piñas. The app was asking me to rate the trip. With trembling fingers, I pulled up the ride details. Passenger name, Maria S. No profile picture, which was common enough. But something made me tap on the previous rides for this account. There was only one other ride, from 3 weeks earlier. Same pickup location in Malate. Same drop-off in Las Piñas. Same time, around 20:30 a.m. I should have driven away right then. I should have gone home, deleted the app, and never driven at night again. But I didn't. Something compelled me to get out of the car. The street was silent. No traffic, no voices, just the distant sound of a dog barking somewhere. I walked up to the gate of the house, my legs feeling like rubber. There was a mailbox next to the gate, rusty and dented. Inside it, I could see some old papers and envelopes. I reached in and pulled out a few pieces of mail, moldy and water, damaged. They were addressed to Maria Santiago. My blood turned to ice. I stuffed the letters back into the mailbox and hurried back to my car, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I drove away from that house as fast as I could, without breaking the speed limit. constantly checking my rearview mirror to make sure the back seat was still empty. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I sat up for hours researching. I searched for Maria Santiago Las Piñas, variations of the name, news articles, anything. It took me until dawn, but I finally found something. A news article from 2019. 3 years before my ride, a woman named Maria Santiago, 34, had drowned in the Manila Bay after her car went off a dock in Roxas Boulevard late one night. She worked in Makati and lived in Las Piñas. She'd been driving home from a late shift when it happened. Her body had been recovered 3 days later. The article included a photo. It was her. The same woman who'd been in my back seat. The same face, the same long black hair. But in the photo, she was alive, smiling at the camera at what looked like an office party. The article said the area where she went into the water was in Malate, near Remedios Circle, the exact area where I'd picked her up. I never drove for that rideshare company again. I quit the next day. I told them there was a family emergency that I had to stop immediately. I couldn't tell them the truth. Who would believe me? But here's the thing that haunts me the most. The thing that keeps me up at night, even now, 3 years later. 2 weeks after my ride with Maria, I was talking to another driver I knew, a guy named Ramon, who also did night shifts. We were having coffee, and I was trying to work up the courage to tell him what had happened to me. Before I could, he started telling me about a weird ride he'd had recently. A woman in Malate, going to Las Piñas. Around 2030 in the morning. She didn't talk, he said. The car got really cold. And when he got to the destination, that same house, she was gone. Probably just fell asleep and got out while I wasn't looking, he said, laughing nervously. But man, it was weird. Left water all over my back seat. I couldn't tell him. I just nodded and changed the subject. Since then, I've heard whispers. Other drivers, always late at night, always in Facebook groups or casual conversations. A woman in white in Malate. A ride to Las Piñas that turned strange. A passenger who disappears. She's still out there. Maria Santiago is still trying to get home every few weeks using that same app, requesting that same ride. She died before she could make it home that night, and some part of her doesn't understand that. Some part of her is still trying to complete that journey. I think about her sometimes and I feel terrible. She wasn't trying to scare me. She wasn't malicious. She was just lost and confused and desperate to get home. And she still is, 3 years after she drowned, still calling for rides, still making that same trip over and over again. If you're a rideshare driver in Manila, and you get a request around 2030 in the morning from a woman named Maria S. in Malate, going to Las Piñas, I can't tell you what to do. Maybe you should take the ride. Maybe she deserves to make it home, even if it's just an echo of her trying. Maybe that's all any of us can do for the dead. Help them get where they need to go. But if you do accept that ride, and the car gets cold, and you look in your rearview mirror and see those black eyes staring back at you, just remember this. Keep driving. Don't stop. Don't question it. Just take her home. She's not trying to hurt you. She's just trying to get home. And someday, maybe, she'll finally make it and she can rest. Until then, she'll keep calling for rides, night after night, trying to finish that last journey she never got to complete. I still live in Manila, but I don't drive at night anymore. I got a day job, regular hours. Sometimes, though, when I'm awake late and I hear about rideshare drivers talking about strange experiences, I wonder if it's her again. I wonder if she's still out there, sitting in the back of someone's car, dripping water on their seats, trying so desperately to make it home. And I hope, somehow, that she does. I really do. Because nobody should be lost forever, not even the dead. I'm sharing this story because I need people to understand that some places are wrong. Not haunted, not cursed, just wrong. There's no other way to describe it. And if you're looking for an apartment in Quezon City, specifically near Cubao, and someone offers you a unit that seems too good to be true, trust your instincts. Walk away. My name is Patricia, and I'm 28 years old. I work in marketing for a pharmaceutical company in Ortigas. In 2023, I was living with my parents in Marikina, but the commute was killing me. 3 hours a day, sometimes more. I was exhausted all the time, and I knew I needed to find a place closer to work. I had a budget of around 15,000 pesos a month, which, in Metro Manila, doesn't get you much. I spent weeks looking at places online, visiting studios and bed spaces that were either too expensive, too far, or honestly just depressing. You know the ones. No windows, paper-thin walls, shared bathrooms with 5 other people. Then I saw a listing that seemed perfect. A 1-bedroom apartment in a quiet building near Cubao, just a few minutes from the MRT station, fully furnished with a small kitchen and private bathroom. And the rent? 12,000 pesos a month. I couldn't believe it. I messaged the landlord immediately. His name was Mr. Rosales, and he responded within an hour. He said the unit had just become available, and he was looking for a tenant who would take care of the place. He could show it to me the next day if I was interested. I was more than interested. I was desperate. The next afternoon, I met Mr. Rosales at the building. It was an older structure, maybe built in the 90s, but it looked well maintained. 5 stories, with that typical Manila architecture. Concrete, barred windows, a small courtyard with some plants that had seen better days. Mr. Rosales was in his 60s, I'd guess. Thin, with graying hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He seemed nice enough, a little quiet maybe, but professional. He led me up the stairs to the 4th floor. Unit 4B, he said, unlocking the door. It's been vacant for a few months, so it might be a bit dusty, but everything works. The moment he opened the door, I fell in love with the place. It was perfect. Not too big, not too small. There was a living area with a couch and a small TV stand. A bedroom with a double bed and a closet, a kitchenette with a 2-burner stove and a mini fridge, and a bathroom that was actually clean and modern. Big windows too, which was rare. The bedroom window looked out over the street, and there was another window in the living room that faced the interior courtyard. Natural light flooded the space. "This is amazing," I said, walking around, opening cabinets, checking everything. "Why is it so cheap?" Mr. Rosales hesitated for just a moment. The previous tenant left suddenly. Had to go abroad for work. She paid until the end of her contract, so I'm not in a rush to fill it. I'd rather have someone reliable who will stay long term. It made sense. And honestly, I didn't want to question my good luck too much. "When can I move in?" I asked. "Whenever you'd like," he said. "I'll just need a deposit and first month's rent." I moved in 3 days later. My parents weren't thrilled about me living alone, but they understood. My younger brother helped me bring my things. Not that I had much. Some clothes, my laptop, a few books, kitchen supplies. The apartment was already furnished, so I didn't need to buy anything major. That first night, I was so happy. I ordered dinner from a nearby restaurant, unpacked my things, and set up my small workspace in the living room. The commute to work would be so much easier now. I could sleep in an extra hour. Maybe I'd actually have a social life again. I went to bed around 11 p.m., exhausted from moving but satisfied. The bed was comfortable. The room was dark and quiet, and I fell asleep almost immediately. I woke up at 3017 a.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone. I'm not sure what woke me. I didn't hear anything unusual, but I was suddenly wide awake, my heart racing like I'd had a nightmare, even though I couldn't remember dreaming. The apartment was silent. Too silent, actually. In Manila, there's always some noise traffic, dogs barking, neighbors, something. But at that moment, I couldn't hear anything. It was like the building was wrapped in cotton. I lay there for a few minutes, trying to calm down and go back to sleep. That's when I noticed the smell. It was faint at first, but it was definitely there. Cigarette smoke. But not fresh smoke, stale smoke, like someone had been smoking for hours in a closed room. I don't smoke, and I'd specifically asked Mr. Rosales if the previous tenant smoked. He'd said no. I got up and walked around the apartment, trying to find the source. It seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I opened the windows, turned on the fan, and went back to bed. Eventually, I fell asleep again. The next morning, the smell was gone. I convinced myself it had come from a neighbor's unit, traveling through the vents or under the door somehow. Old buildings are like that. Everything was fine for the next week. I settled into a routine work, home, cooking dinner, watching Netflix, sleep. The apartment was perfect. My commute was down to 45 minutes. I felt like a real adult with my own place. Then, exactly 1 week after I moved in, it happened again. I woke up at 3117 a.m. Same time, same sudden jolt into consciousness, same racing heart. And this time, the smell of cigarette smoke was stronger, much stronger. I got up and turned on all the lights. I checked the entire apartment. The bedroom, the living room, the bathroom, the kitchen. Nothing. But the smell was overwhelming now, like someone was standing right next to me, blowing smoke in my face. And then I heard it. Footsteps. In the living room. Slow, deliberate footsteps pacing back and forth. From the window to the door, then back to the window. Over and over. I was frozen in my bedroom doorway, staring at the living room. I could see the entire space. There was no one there. But I could hear the footsteps clear as day. The floorboards were even creaking. "Hello," I called out, my voice shaking. "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but was probably only a few minutes, holding my breath, listening. Nothing. Eventually, I worked up the courage to walk into the living room. I checked the door, still locked from the inside, chain still in place. The windows were closed. I was alone. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I sat on the couch with all the lights on until sunrise, and then I got ready for work like nothing had happened. I told myself I was stressed. New place, new routine, probably just my imagination. but I didn't believe it. That day at work, I couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking about the footsteps, the cigarette smoke, waking up at exactly 3017 a.m. I decided to do some research. During my lunch break, I searched for the building's address along with terms like haunted, ghost, death. Nothing came up. I tried different combinations. Still nothing. Then I remembered something. When I'd first looked at the listing, there had been reviews from previous tenants of the building. I pulled up the website and started reading through them. Most were normal complaints about water pressure, noise from the street, that sort of thing. But then I found one review from 8 months earlier, for Unit 4B specifically. It was brief. Don't rent 4B. Just don't. Trust me. That was it. No explanation. The user had given the apartment 1 star and left that message. My hands were shaking as I read it. I clicked on the user's profile, hoping to find more information, but the account had been deleted. When I got home that evening, I stood outside the building for a long time, staring up at the 4th floor. My windows. The windows of Unit 4B looked dark and empty, even though I'd left the living room light on that morning. I was sure I had. I went upstairs and checked. The light was off. Either I'd forgotten to turn it on, or someone had been in my apartment. I checked the door and the windows. Everything was locked. Nothing was missing. But something felt wrong. The air in the apartment felt heavy, oppressive. I called my brother. "Can you come over tonight? I'll order pizza. I want some company." He could hear something in my voice because he didn't ask questions. "Sure, AT. I'll be there in an hour." Having him there helped. We ate, talked, watched a movie. He fell asleep on the couch around midnight, and I felt safe enough to go to my bedroom and try to sleep. I woke up at 3017 a.m. This time, I wasn't alone. There was a woman standing at the foot of my bed. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I could only stare. She was young, maybe in her mid-20s. She had long, dark hair and was wearing a white sleeveless blouse and jeans. She wasn't transparent or glowing or any of that movie ghost stuff. She looked completely solid, completely real. Except for her eyes. Her eyes were empty. Not black, not white, just empty, like looking into a void. She was holding a cigarette and smoke was curling up from it. That's when I realized I could smell it again, that stale cigarette smoke that had been haunting me. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, she raised one hand and pointed at the window. The bedroom window that faced the street. I forced myself to look. The window was open. I knew I'd closed it before bed. I knew it. When I looked back at the woman, she was gone. Just vanished, like she'd never been there. But the cigarette smoke lingered. I ran out of the bedroom, nearly tripping over my own feet. My brother was still asleep on the couch. I shook him awake. "We need to leave," I said. "Now. We need to leave right now." He was groggy, confused. "What? Why? What happened?" "Please," I begged. "Please, just trust me. We have to go." Something in my face must have convinced him because he didn't argue. We grabbed my laptop, my bag, and we left. I didn't even lock the door properly. I just needed to get out. We went back to my parents' house in Marikina. My brother kept asking me what happened, but I couldn't explain. Not yet. I just kept saying I'd seen something, that the apartment wasn't safe. The next morning, I called Mr. Rosales. I need to break my lease, I told him. I'm moving out today. There was a long pause. Did something happen? Please, I said. I just need to get my things and leave. You can keep the deposit. Another pause. Then, quietly, you saw her, didn't you? My blood ran cold. What? The girl. You saw the girl. Who is she? I demanded. What happened in that apartment? Mr. Rosales sighed. It was a heavy, tired sound. Her name was Angela. She was the tenant before the one who moved abroad. She lived in 4B for 2 years. What happened to her? She jumped, he said, out of the bedroom window. 3 in the morning, about 10 months ago. Neighbors heard the impact. She was dead before the ambulance arrived. I felt sick. Why didn't you tell me? I needed to rent the place, he said. And I hoped that maybe she'd moved on. The tenant after her only lasted 2 weeks. She didn't tell me why she left, but I could guess. You're the 3rd person to try living there. I'm not staying, I said firmly. I understand. I'll meet you there in an hour. We'll get your things. When I went back with my brother and my father to collect my belongings, Mr. Rosales was waiting outside. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. I'm sorry, he said. I should have told you. I can't afford to leave it empty. Then tear it down, I said, or find someone to bless it. But don't rent it to anyone else. Please. He nodded but didn't promise anything. We packed up my stuff quickly. I didn't want to spend any more time in that apartment than I had to. As we were loading the last box into my dad's car, I looked up at the bedroom window one more time. She was there. Angela. Standing behind the glass, watching us. She raised her hand, not pointing this time, just W, waving, like she was saying goodbye. I haven't been back to that building. I found a new apartment in Ortigas, closer to work, but more expensive. I'm sharing it with a roommate now. I don't care about the extra cost. I'll never live alone in a cheap, too-good-to-be-true apartment again. But here's what really haunts me. About a month after I moved out, I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw a post in a housing group. Someone was recommending affordable apartments in Cubao. In the comments, someone else had replied, Unit 4B in building name is available and super cheap, just $12,000 a month. I wanted to warn them. I started typing a comment, trying to explain what had happened. But before I could finish, my phone froze. When it unfroze a minute later, the entire post was gone. Deleted. I searched for the original poster's profile. It didn't exist anymore. I think about that a lot. How many people have rented that apartment since me? How many have woken up at 3:07 a.m. to the smell of cigarette smoke and the sound of footsteps? How many have seen Angela standing at the foot of their bed, pointing at the window she jumped from? I don't know why she stayed. Maybe she doesn't understand that she's dead. Maybe she's trying to warn people. Maybe she's lonely. Or maybe she just wants company in her endless loop of that last night. Whatever the reason, she's still there. I know she is. And Mr. Men. Rosales is probably still renting out that apartment to desperate people like me who just need an affordable place to live. If you're looking for an apartment in Cubao and someone offers you Unit 4B, please, please walk away. The cheap rent isn't worth it. The convenience isn't worth it. Nothing is worth spending even one night in that place. And if you ignore this warning and rent it anyway, here's my advice. Don't unpack too much. Don't get comfortable. And when you wake up at 3007 a.m., and you will wake up at 3017 a.m., don't look at the foot of your bed, because she'll be there holding her cigarette, pointing at the window. And once you see her, you'll never forget those empty eyes. They'll follow you in your dreams long after you move out. I still see them sometimes, even now, when I'm falling asleep, when I'm alone in a dark room, when I catch my reflection in a window at night. Empty eyes staring back at me. Angela is still in Unit 4B, and I think she always will be. Still smoking, still pacing, still waiting for something that's never going to come, and still pointing at that window over and over again, replaying the worst moment of her life for eternity. Don't make the mistake I made. Don't ignore the warnings. Some places are just wrong, and no amount of affordable rent is worth finding out why. I need to start by saying that I never believed in Aswang. I grew up hearing the stories, of course. Every Filipino kid does. My Lola would tell us tales about shapeshifters and creatures that hunted at night, but I always thought they were just stories. Folklore. Superstition meant to scare children into behaving. I don't think that anymore. My name is Raphael, but everyone calls me Rafi. I'm 32 years old, and I work as an architect in Makati. Last year, in 2024, I made a decision that I thought would improve my quality of life. I decided to leave the city and move to the provinces. I know what you're thinking. Another burnt-out millennial escaping Manila. And you're right. I was exhausted. The traffic, the pollution, the noise, the endless grind. I'd been living in a tiny condo in Mandaluyong, barely seeing sunlight, spending 3 hours a day in traffic. When my company announced we could work remotely full-time, I jumped at the chance. I started looking for property in my parents' home province of Batangas. I wanted something quiet, with land, maybe near the mountains. After a few months of searching, I found it. A small house with 2 bedrooms, a decent-sized yard, and a view of Mount Makiling in the distance. The house was in a barangay called San Isidro, about 20 minutes from the nearest town. The price was incredible. The house needed some work, but it was structurally sound. The owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Dehaz Cruz, was moving to Canada to live with her daughter. She wanted to sell quickly. I bought it in October, and by November, I was moved in. My parents were worried about me living alone so far from the city, but I assured them I'd be fine. I'd visit on weekends, and they could visit me. It would be an adventure. The first few weeks were paradise. I'd wake up to roosters crowing and birds singing instead of car horns and construction. I'd have my coffee on the porch, looking at the mountains, watching the sun rise over the rice fields. My neighbors were friendly, mostly farmers and their families. They'd wave when they saw me, and some of the older women would bring me food, worried that I didn't know how to cook properly. There was one house that intrigued me. It was about 100 meters from mine, separated by a small cluster of mango trees. It was newer than most of the houses in the area, painted a bright yellow with a nice fence and gate, but I never saw anyone coming or going. The windows were always shuttered, and there were no clothes hanging outside, no signs of life. I asked one of my neighbors, Mang Carlos, about it one afternoon when he stopped by to bring me some mangoes. "Who lives in the yellow house?" I asked, pointing. Mang Carlos glanced at it, and his friendly expression shifted slightly. "Ah, that's Ate Helen's house. She lives alone. I never see her around." "She keeps to herself," he said, and something in his tone told me not to press further. "She works night shift, sleeps during the day." "What kind of work?" He shrugged. "Not sure. Something in the city, I think. She drives out at night, comes back before dawn." I nodded, accepting the explanation. Plenty of people work night shifts. It wasn't unusual. But then Mang Carlos added, almost as an afterthought, "Best not to bother her. She likes her privacy." The way he said it felt like a warning. Everything was fine until December. That's when the dogs started dying. It began with Mang Carlos's dog, a friendly aspen named Bantay. I'd pet him whenever I walked past their house. One morning, I saw Mang Carlos burying something in his yard. When I asked what happened, he said, "Bantay had died in the night." "How?" I asked. "Don't know," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Just found him this morning, all dried up like something drained him." I thought it was strange, but dogs die. Maybe he was old, maybe he got sick. I didn't think much of it. Then, 3 days later, another dog died. This one belonged to a family down the road. Same thing. Found dead in the morning, body looking dried out, shriveled. Then another, and another. Within 2 weeks, 5 dogs had died in our barangay, all the same way. All found in the early morning, as if something had killed them during the night. The neighborhood was on edge. People started keeping their dogs inside at night, chaining them up close to their houses. Some of the older residents started whispering about Aswang, but the younger people dismissed it. "Probably poison," they said. "Maybe someone was trying to get rid of the dogs." But I noticed something else. Every time a dog died, I'd been awakened the night before by a strange sound. It was a ticking sound. Tick, 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 tick. Like someone clicking their tongue rapidly. It would start around midnight and go on for hours, moving around the area. Sometimes it sounded far away, sometimes closer, but it was always there. I mentioned it to Mang Carlos one day. His face went pale. "You heard the tick-tick?" "Yeah, the last few nights." "What is it?" "Some kind of bird." He shook his head slowly. "That's no bird, Raffy. That's how you know it's near." "How you know what's near?" He lowered his voice, even though we were alone. "The Aswang. They make that sound when they're hunting. The tick-tick. And here's the thing. When it sounds far away, it means it's close. When it sounds close, it's far away. They do it to confuse you." I wanted to laugh it off, but the look in his eyes stopped me. He was genuinely frightened. "Mang Carlos, you don't really believe?" "I've lived here my whole life," he interrupted. 63 years. I know what I know. Something is hunting in this barangay, and it's not human. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Mang Carlos had said, about the dogs, about the tick-tick sound, about Aswang. Around 1 a.m., I heard it again. Tick-tick-tick-tick. It sounded like it was right outside my window. Following Mang Carlos's logic, that meant it was actually far away. I got up and looked out, but I couldn't see anything. Just darkness and the silhouettes of trees swaying in the wind. Then I saw a light in the distance. A single light moving through the darkness. It was coming from the direction of the yellow house. I watched as the light moved down the path toward the road. It was a flashlight, and someone was carrying it. I couldn't see who. It was too dark, but I could make out a figure walking with a strange, deliberate gait. The figure walked down the road, heading toward the rice fields. The tick-tick-tick sound seemed to follow it, growing fainter as it moved away. According to Mang Carlos's logic, that meant it was actually getting closer. I stepped away from the window, my heart pounding. I locked all my doors and windows, even though it was a hot night. I turned on all the lights in my house, and I sat on my couch with a large kitchen knife beside me, waiting for morning. Nothing happened that night. But the next morning, another dog was dead. This one belonged to a family even closer to my house, just 2 houses away. I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know what was going on. That night, I decided to stay awake and watch. If something was killing these dogs, I wanted to see what it was. I positioned myself by my bedroom window with a view of the yellow house. I had my phone ready to record, a flashlight, and, yes, that kitchen knife again. I felt ridiculous, like a kid afraid of monsters under the bed. But I stayed there, watching. Around midnight, the light came on in the yellow house. Just a faint glow behind the shuttered windows. Then, about 20 minutes later, the front door opened. A woman stepped out. She was tall and thin, wearing dark clothing. She looked around carefully, as if checking to see if anyone was watching, and then she closed the door behind her and locked it. But here's the thing. She didn't walk to a car. She didn't go to the road. Instead, she walked to the back of her property, toward the trees that separated our houses. And then, I swear to God, I saw something that made my blood run cold. She looked around one more time, and then she crouched down. Her body started to move in a way that wasn't natural. Her back arched, her arms bent at impossible angles, and then she split in half. I don't know how else to describe it. Her torso separated from her lower body, and the upper half sprouted something dark and leathery from its back. Wings. Bat-like wings that unfolded and spread wide. The lower half of her body. Her legs just stood there, motionless, like a discarded shell. The upper half, this thing with wings and dangling organs that I could see even in the darkness, lifted into the air. It rose above the trees, and that's when I heard it clearly. Tick, 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 tick. The sound was coming from the thing in the air. And it was loud, so loud, which meant if Mang Carlos was right, it was actually far away, moving away from me. But then the sound started to fade, growing quieter, which meant it was coming back, coming closer. I ducked away from the window, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I hadn't recorded anything. I'd been too frozen in shock to even think of it. I crawled to my bed and hid under the blankets like a terrified child. I could hear it circling above my house. The tick-tick-tick grew so quiet it was almost inaudible, which meant it was directly above me. I heard something land on my roof. Soft footsteps, if you could call them that, moving across the tiles. Then silence. Then scratching. Something was scratching at my roof, trying to find a way in. I wanted to scream, but I was too terrified to make a sound. I just lay there, clutching my knife, praying to every saint I could remember. The scratching continued for what felt like hours, but was probably only 10 or 15 minutes. Then, finally, it stopped. I heard the tick, tick, tick sound again, growing louder as the thing moved away. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my living room with every light on until the sun came up. In the morning, I went outside to check my roof. There were scratches in the tiles, deep gouges that looked like they'd been made by claws or talons. And there was a smell, a horrible rotting smell that made me gag. I also found something else. In my yard, near the fence, there were drops of something dark and viscous on the grass. It wasn't blood, it was thicker, more like oil, and it smelled like decay. I took pictures of everything. Then I called Mang Carlos. When he arrived and saw the scratches on my roof, his face confirmed what I already knew. "It was here," he said quietly. "It tried to get inside." "What do I do?" I asked, hearing the panic in my own voice. "You need protection," he said. "I'll bring you some things: salt, garlic, holy water. And you need to put a knife under your bed, blade pointing up. They don't like that." "Mang Carlos, I saw where it came from. It's the woman in the yellow house. It's Helen." He nodded slowly, like he'd suspected as much. I had my suspicions. She only moved here a year ago, and that's when strange things started happening. Animals dying, people getting sick. "We need to tell someone. The police, the barangay captain." "And tell them what?" he asked. "That our neighbor is an Aswang? They'll think we're crazy." "Then what do we do?" "We protect ourselves. We wait. Eventually, she'll move on. They always do when people start to suspect." But I couldn't wait. I couldn't spend another night in that house knowing what was next door. I packed a bag and drove to my parents' house that same day. I told them I needed a break, that I'd be back in a few weeks. But I kept tabs on the barangay through Mang Carlos. The deaths stopped after I left. No more dogs died. The tick-tick sound disappeared. And 3 weeks later, Mang Carlos called to tell me that Helen had moved away. The yellow house was empty again, up for rent. I went back after that, but I never felt safe again. Every night, I'd check all my windows and doors. I put salt lines at every entrance. I kept a knife under my bed and wore an ajumat that Mang Carlos gave me. A charm blessed by a local healer. I lasted another 2 months before I decided to move back to Manila. I sold the house at a loss, and I don't care. I'd rather deal with traffic and pollution than spend another night wondering if something is going to land on my roof. The new owners are a young couple from Laguna. I wanted to warn them, but what could I say? I tried hinting that the area had some problems with wild animals, that they should be careful at night, but I could see they weren't taking me seriously. I hope they'll be okay. I hope Helen doesn't come back. But in my heart, I know the truth. Aswang are real. They live among us. They look like normal people. They could be your neighbor, your coworker, someone you see every day. And you'd never know until it's too late. I still have nightmares about that night. I see her splitting in half, see those wings unfurling, see that thing rising into the air. I hear the tick-tick-tick sound, sometimes when I'm falling asleep and I jolt awake in a panic. My friends in Manila ask me why I moved back, why I gave up my dream of provincial living. I just tell them it wasn't for me, that I missed the city. But the truth is, I ran. I ran from something that my rational, educated, modern mind tells me shouldn't exist. And yet, I saw it. I know what I saw. If you're planning to move to the provinces, please be careful. Pay attention to the warnings that locals give you, even if they seem superstitious. Watch for the signs. Animals dying mysteriously, strange sounds at night, neighbors who are never seen during the day. And if you hear that tick-tick-tick sound, remember, when it sounds far away, it's close. And when it sounds close, it's right on top of you. I learned that lesson the hard way. I hope you never have to. And now, as the stories come to an end, take a moment to listen to the rain around you. If you're still awake, make sure you're safe beneath your blanket and that the sounds you hear belong only to the night outside. Some say when everything goes quiet, that's when something is closest. Thank you for spending this time with us. If these true horror stories kept you company or kept you uneasy, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. We share new stories 3 to 4 times a week. Until next time, rest well, and whatever you do, don't listen too closely.